We shall know in front. Boom. We are live.
Perfect. Let's go. Twende kazi.
Man, I can't understand how my equipment is failing me. Although there's a podcast a recording I did with a friend of mine. Although that was because it was recorded, it was not live stream. We're able to use it. I just haven't had time to sit down and I think today sit I'm like I figure this shit out.
Often I realize how the week is so hectic without knowing. Yani unagutukia pap.
It's Monday. I mean, Christmas is here with us, bro.
Hey, we are not even thinking of Christmas. We are thinking of goals, and you say Christmas is for those who have a very huge volume of revenue streams. But if you are in that category of, you are even relying on the, what do you call it, the annual bonus to celebrate Christmas. You've muted yourself hapo naona. And
So,
your
yeah,
camera
people,
your camera inacheza cheza, mara iko bright, mara inakuwa a bit dull. Umeka like auto adjust.
let me check.
Hapo imeenda dim kiasi, pandisha
Let me see.
kidogo. That is perfect.
It's perfect.
Perfect. Tena umerudisha. Is it on auto? Is it on auto adjust?
No, there's no setting for to adjust on the phone. It's just basically the resolution. I've just picked. Let me see
Hapo
this.
sawa.
This
Au umepitisha tena?
nimepitisha. Okay, I think it's when I do mirror.
You look like ulikuwa umeenda kwa snow.
Yeah, maybe also the lighting. The lighting might be a bit too bright.
Ndio nasema, is it possible that the phone is reacting to, the camera is reacting to the ambient light?
Likely.
Yeah, because if it is a camera, chances are ina react to the ambience. But anyway, wacha kaende. Hii si NTV. As I was saying, if you are relying on the annual bonus kusherekea Christmas, you're in deep shit. You're in deep shit. You should be in such a situation whereby for you can have your own Christmas celebration even in June.
Correct.
Time is on your side. Time is, unless there's some very crazy situation like the disruptors like COVID and these huge outstanding stuff. But if you're supposed to be at a level whereby you don't go with the crowd, you can have your holiday in June and you grind throughout December. Then you have another holiday in February. So you are not running with the herd. And remember, people who, when you sort of operating with the normal holiday flow, December, whatnot, you are actually feeding the matrix. That's where businesses come up with these end of the year offers where they sell you substandard stuff. Transport services, like in Kenya, is where you'll travel with the worst looking vehicles, because like in buses, some of these unscrupulous bus companies, unapata mdosi anasema ataki basi imelala, so mechanics are busy waking up ile ambayo wewe inalala kwa mawe from January. Mdosi anasema December this vehicle has to move. That's where you find yourself, because I think it was in 2013 I was in Mombasa. I saw one of these most biggest companies, a very old bus was passing. So I was asking somebody, I think one of the conductors, why is this such a vehicle on the road? It's December. The boss says he doesn't want to see any vehicle in the yard. So and the thing is, ingurume ifike ofisini ibebe iondoke na pesa kwa mfuko, tupilia mbali. All the best getting a refund in case of a breakdown. So this is what you become part of when you are in that December celebration, because even the business community knows these are guys who have been stuck since January. They have gotten a bonus. Now let's feast on that bonus.
Yeah, they give you bonus, and then on the other flip side of it, they are taking
There's
it
somebody
in.
waiting to swallow
And
that
then,
bonus.
and then come January.
Imagine how many steps you'd make if you decide December you eat normal, but the bonus, maybe if it's double or triple your salary, you put it in bonds. And you say
Yes.
you've been working for 10 years. Imagine every year. So you can strengthen your bond every year. You're adding into it. Imagine after 10 years what happens.
Yeah, man. If you get into that game, I mean, we were looking at. You've seen how the Safaricom share price has gone up. I mean, now it's dwindling. It's down. I think the current share price is about what, 14, 15 shillings.
Mm.
But earlier in the year, it was upwards of what, 30, 35. So just imagine the guys who came in when it was like about 5 shillings, 10 shillings, and poured in quite a lot of money. Those guys have, and that was what? When was it? When was its IPO?
I think
It's
it
a
was
little
in
over
2008 or 2007.
7. Yes, round about that.
Karibu sana
Already
tena
more than 10 years.
2007 to 8. Leave alone that one. I remember when I was in primary school,
Mhm.
Kenya Airways were floating shares at 5 bob. And I was singing to someone. I'm in primary school. I'm telling someone, iki tu ni shilingi tano. Just scoop. No, 10K was a lot of money. Just tafuta 10K, weke, then we forget. And since I was small, that advice got puziliwa mbali. Now,
Yeah.
how much is a KQ share right now?
KQ must be so low. Probably it's back to those levels. Let me see. KQ stock price. It's at 3 shillings and 28 cents.
Yeah, that's puny. But
It's
that
very
was around,
puny.
I think it was in 1993, 93, 94 is when
Yeah.
they put it. It was going for 5 shillings, 55 cents. Then imagine where it was in 2010. The amount
Yeah, I
of
mean, if you get in, because I've played a bit on the stock exchange, and so number one, I think the key principle is have a long-term view.
yeah.
And then two, initially I'd spread across my investment around 6 stocks, but I realized also that's a wrong approach. The idea is to have at least, of course, depending, of course, with how much money you're coming in, the 6 stocks could also be good for you. But instead of spreading that into a lot of stocks, you'd rather accumulate that in about 2 or 3 other stocks. So cut that by half, and let's just double down on those. I mean, which are the best stocks, like on the NSE stock exchange? I mean, you're talking of the Safaricom is still a good bet. And even now, when people are complaining, for me, this is the time to actually buy more. They say there's that principle that Warren Buffett uses. When people are scared, that's the time to be greedy. So when people are fearful, so like now people are fearful of Safaricom, they're saying, man, Safaricom was at 35, now it's gone more than 50% down. So should we be divesting out of Safaricom? No. The idea is to actually invest more. So you now buy more now when people are fearful. So be greedy when people are fearful. And when they are greedy, be fearful. So it's the opposite now. So when everyone, and you see this sort of euphoria during the IPO, when everyone is just congregating because they know their mother and their cows and their dogs, they're all buying that stock exchange. But is it a good bet? So long-term view, invest in a few, and then just double down on those few. So if you say you're going to do the Safaricom and maybe a few banking stocks, for me, the banking stocks, if you talk of the stock exchange, I'm not, there's a friend of mine who's very good at these things. He even knows, I think even sometimes what he does, he actually gets loans from the bank and buys stock exchange. And you would typically do it when they're just about to announce their earnings. So it would probably be like for Safaricom, will be around March, April, I think.
Also, he sort of predicts the dividend.
Yes.
Takes a loan, gets the dividend, and then repays it.
Dividends, and also at that time also the share price starts going up. So if you come in like at a time like January, when Safaricom, let's say, could be at around 28, as people are anticipating the earnings to be announced in March, April, the share price goes higher because people are also anticipating that they will get, if there haven't been any profit warnings and the company is still on an upward trajectory, so people expect there'll be dividends, people expect the share price will go up. So it comes in at 28, probably you'll be selling that off around that same time after he earns his dividends at around 35. And that time you'll have made his money. So when he sells at 35, you'll have made what, around 7 shillings. And if he has probably bought in about 1 million shilling worth of shares, you can imagine how much he's getting out of that. So, but him is in the sector, he's in the industry, but
he's an old hand. He's an old hand.
He's an older, definitely, and he's already connected with a lot of those stockbrokers.
By the way,
there's still a lot of insider trading that happens, eh? So there's
that the insider trading that you cannot can't remove it. By the way, in the NSE, do people also use bots, those robots or softwares, algorithm for predicting stocks? I know in other countries they are there, but I don't know about. It's like a software that collects all the data for all the years up to the current year. Then it sort of gives you a prediction what to expect.
Okay.
Those are actually prediction algorithms.
I don't know if they're bots, but yes, there are those kind of things, because they could say, you look at the price, what was it a year ago? There are sometimes they use, what is it? If you look at Business Daily, there's a chart and it shows, so there is some kind of calculations that can be done that could predict. So I bet there's probably some version of it. I don't think it's at the point where it's so sophisticated like what you'd get on a New York Stock Exchange, a FTSE, a NASDAQ, those kind of stock exchanges, the global ones. Maybe the JSE in SA. So, in Africa, you're talking about JSE, the Nigeria one. I think Egypt is also another big contender, probably Morocco. And then Kenya probably comes in around the 4th or 5th. But I'm not sure if the bots are there, but they can give you some prediction. Those stock traders then can tell you. But this thing is also become a patapotea. So there's a bit of gambling that's happening with it.
It's like a sophisticated version of sports betting.
It is. It is.
Like in what's called SportPesa or Betika. When I used to bet some time back, we used to call ourselves Waekezaji.
Exactly. So because when you think about it, take a step back and see. Apple is said to be the largest company in the world. That is based on its market capitalization. Now, you can look at Apple in terms of the revenue it's making and the asset it has. Maybe compare that with an actual conglomerate like what? Let's say a GE, General Electric. look at the assets that GE has and the like. So asset-wise, actually GE is a fairly larger company. I mean, the likes of GE, Samsung, because even Samsung, I think that Samsung is so big, it's into shipbuilding, it's into other businesses. So when you look at a Samsung and an Apple,
Shipbuilding
Apple,
is Hyundai.
it's Hyundai, eh? Oh, okay. But generally, you would find um, a lot of this is made up valuation because we are saying that the Apple stock is worth this much. And some of it is just a made up figure. Yes, they could say based on this
It's,
and
it's,
that,
it's,
and that.
it's
But
speculation.
it's a yes, it's very speculative, but it's not tied to some hard asset.
No, no,
That
it's not.
valuation could go down overnight.
For example, it's not
But a
like
company like, let's say that, as you say, a Hyundai and a Toyota and a GE, where there's some real tangible assets. For
yes.
me, if you are to tell me that's not a company whose valuation would be down overnight, because it's tied to some real value, some tangible value. But the kind of valuation that you'd have on an Apple, on a Facebook, it's
Yeah,
very,
because when you look at some of, yes, they are called algorithm trade alerts. That's what Sheriff Mustafa is saying. You see, the problem with some of these, like Apple and whatnot, these are buzz-driven products. It only needs, let's say, for example, they make an update on the existing platform, then the update goes, as the British say, it goes tits up. And people are tweeting this,
belly
the
up.
update is useless. This update is pathetic. That can cause it won't be a major issue, but it can the share price can take a hit.
Yeah.
They do an update to make I don't know what on the pixels and it goes off, or the update fails midstream. Obviously, the share price will take a hit. But for automotive, so many times vehicles have problems, they just recall them, fix it, and you have a happy customer, and the stock is well. The only issue that can cause share price of automotive manufacturer to go wrong is an extremely serious quality problem to do with safety. Now we have a problem. But
Yes.
small glitches like maybe I don't know, the seat belts it's too tight, or maybe cup holders and are making a rattling noise. A recall, of course, a recall is expensive, but won't take a very major hit on the share price, as opposed to you have an update that when people update, it fails midstream, the screen goes blank and whatnot. And the way we live in a world that is driven by sensationalism, and again, Apple is not selling. Apple is actually selling the name, not really the product. Because if it is the Apple product, Chinese can clone it in seconds. But
Exactly.
but the
And
name, yes, yes, go on, please.
yes, and I mean, the whole idea of the stock exchange is there's some highly subjective elements to it. And yes, even for the vehicle manufacturer, or even any major manufacturer, because of a certain news item that has been running, maybe they had a failed product, yes, that's likely to impact on its share price and subsequently its market capitalization. But devoid of that, the company can also rely on some real tangible values that
Yes,
can back its value. Now, these other companies, particularly some of the software companies, they don't have necessarily that tangible backing.
they don't.
So it's purely speculative, it's purely subjective, it's purely perception based. So if you remove that, then they have nothing to hold on to. But for the likes of Hyundai and whatever, I mean, yes, they could have a bad year when their cars didn't sell because of that hitch they had. but because they're still producing something valuable, something required in the market, they can be back out there and still
And
operating and offering
what
something of value.
one thing I've come to realize now, I started being active in with the motorbikes and whatnot, getting deeper insights into motor vehicle. A very large chunk of revenue comes from selling spare parts. Not even we
Mm.
can announce they are selling of vehicle, but it is the spare parts which will ensure that you are able to pay salaries and whatnot. Spares. That's why a Mercedes Benz C200 will get the sensor costing, I don't know how much money. You're in Kenya. The sense your vehicle is, of course, you are a Kenyan, your vehicle is an 8-year-old import from, I don't know, UK or whatnot. But the sensor has to be new. Then there the sensor is coming from Germany. So the aspect of spare parts covers into even the grey exports, which are the grey imports from our end. So spare part business is the real thing. That's why you won't find it announcing. They'll say number of units sold. But when it comes to spares, they tell this spare is going to be sold, even going to be exported to Africa to service a vehicle that was purchased 8 years ago. It's real
100%.
revenue.
And it's good you brought up that idea of spare parts because that reminds me of I remember listening to this gentleman called Kai Cairo,
Yeah. The guy who sells
the car
German
dealer.
vehicles.
Yeah. I think he sells all manner of vehicles. I've seen some Fords, I've seen some Toyotas.
Okay, he
But he
likes
has a car
touting.
yet.
He likes touting the mostly
The
Audis.
German machines, the Audis and the Porsches.
Mm.
So yes, so you were saying, typically, when you tend to speak of manufacturing in Kenya and much of Africa, we talk of how can we attract um, car manufacturers to assemble their vehicles here. And he gave the idea, which I never thought of. I think that was the first time I had somebody articulate it in a very comprehensive way, was why don't we look at, even before we get into assembling vehicles, just setting up factories for developing or for manufacturing spare parts. And it's true because I even remember I used to take my car to Toyota in Nairobi. Actually, what initially I'll take it there so that I get one of the mechanics and I'll get him to help me work on it
It was
on,
on
on his free
a
time.
poaching mission.
Yes. But you know what he used to do? Anytime he used to want to get a spare part, he would contact somebody in Dubai. And sometimes the spare part is not available, but they can make it. They have all the
I think
designs.
I remember we talked on this issue in one of our earlier episodes. I think in the
Oh, we
recorded
did,
one.
eh?
In the
Yeah,
recorded because
yeah.
I tried to push an agenda to someone, and of course there was some pushback. Mine was focusing on filters, air
Just
filters,
just just manufacturing air filters.
oil filters, fuel
Those are
filters.
easy things to build. Those are easy things to
I even
manufacture.
sent him a system for manufacturing of the filters, and I think they were leaning more on building malls. And I said, "Oh, okay, so." And it
Can you
comes,
imagine? And that's guaranteed the market.
yeah, because with the filters, you start by, in fact, you start by making generic systems.
Mhm,
They sell as long as generic, but it's very high quality. So what
mhm,
happens? Somebody like Scania or Mercedes, because focus on the trucks, diesel, because these vehicles have a lot of mileage on them. A petrol powered car, personal car, is normally driven maybe in the morning, then in the evening, then maybe some, but a diesel vehicle, this commercial vehicle, they're always running. So the turnover of filters is relatively higher. So if you have such a situation whereby, for example, the Isuzu NQR Matatus,
mhm,
you set up a generic unit that actually can be used instead of the one they buy at Isuzu East Africa,
mhm.
they'll run towards you. Then someone
Exactly.
from Isuzu East Africa will approach you, or you can approach them. Why don't you have an outsource of Isuzu spare parts in your factory, plus an Isuzu representative with their own lab to be testing and whatnot? Then, of course, since the product is being assembled locally, it will be cheaper. So
Yes,
it will have the Isuzu East Africa filters manufactured. It is still showing Isuzu, but the guy will notice that it is cheaper now. And then you go to other products, things like ball bearings. You can ball
exactly.
bearing. You can use things like what do you call automated. This is called CNC, whereby
Mhm.
you don't have the power or the electricity is too expensive for you to bring chunks and melting and shaping. You rather bring them in form of cubes.
Mhm.
Then they are shaped. Once they are shaped, those filings you can sell them as scrap because melting that thing in Kenya is a bit expensive. So
Mhm.
you can bring in shaping. You determine the shape, then you import it in form of a cube. So it's just
Mhm.
filing and filing, mass filing system, precision driven. Again, so one of these big manufacturing realized there's a certain company somewhere in Athi River, they are producing ball bearings, but they are working very well. They approach you. Can we have a dedicated assembly line for us? Okay, let's have your own team so that I run the production line, you run the lab
Mhm.
for testing. So slowly by slowly, within 10 years, we can transition to now vehicles because if I can if I can shape uh, a ball bearing, that means I can bring a lump of metal and shape up a slim engine. See, a slim engine is that block without the components. It's called a slim.
Mm.
I can shape my own slim engines. Slowly,
Mhm.
slowly, it moves on. So again, it's all about
So,
yes.
yeah,
You're saying
go on.
so. It goes towards the what do I call it? It's maybe the mentality of our investors who don't want to delve into new waters. Somebody will think of real estate, malls. Uh, I don't know some fun. Whenever you hear something big, is real estate, malls, manufacturing soap and detergents, and I don't know, funny stuff here. But where you say somebody is diving into something new, whereby with diving you can miss a step. It's like a new bird when an eagle does its first flight. I don't know how
Mhm.
an eagle thinks, but that eagle doesn't know it's going to make it. So no one has that mentality of an eagle. Or imagine a lion cub that has grown up. It has been accompanying other lions in hunting. Now it's the first time they put a head higher. Nataka tuende tuangushe ile buffalo pale. Of course, that lion, if you are to try to operate like a lion psychologist, they'll be like, leo mi ndo niko mbele because the small ones tend to come behind. So you are told, we leo ndo uko mbele. The same way a new driver, those when a driver has been working as a conductor, they start with conductors. Ile unaonjeshwa kidogo kidogo, na kwambia leo you are giving you from Athi River to town, twende. So no investor has that. They tend to do what others are doing. Case studies like quails. You remember the quails thing? The quail. Everyone was doing. No one was questioning. What is this? It's like a pyramid scheme. The guys who start earn. So no one wants to do due diligence. No one is sitting down with the importers and say, what do you normally import? So out of what you import, what can I make and sell so that instead of you importing, you be my distributors? So when these investors, because I don't know what they talk about, because the opportunities are crazy and they are all over.
They are, and where I was about to come in was one identifying that supply chain.
Hmm.
So, yes, do you want to go to the end of it, which probably is more advanced and the requirements for it are much higher, or do you identify something? It's a low hanging fruit for me and
Yes,
for us, and I think the car spare parts or any machinery spare parts we
yes,
can easily be able to produce or manufacture that locally.
yes,
Just
yes,
identify that space, and dominate on that space, because already there's like no competition in that.
Yes.
Now, in terms of why isn't the investors or the people that have the capital not seeing this opportunity? I think partly it has to be the government to try and sort of steer this or sort of give guidance on this. So if there is a policy around pushing for manufacturing, then I think what is required is to identify which of those supply chains do you want to be able to fulfill.
Which government are you talking?
It's putting up, yeah. So
which government?
I'm talking in general. That
okay.
this
general
is where the government should try and inform, and to a lot of degrees, some of these things need to be driven, particularly from a policy and education perspective. So there should be government coming in. The sneeze trying to come and it's not coming through. So anyway, so that's one of the area that I feel we need to work on. So policy and where government can inform.
The sneeze, hiyo kuchemua haitaki msimamo. Nitoke ama nisitoke?
Haitaki kutoka.
It's like when you have been hunting a lady. Sema leo akipita hii kona ndio nitarusha mstari. Then you are there like wacha nitakuja kesho.
So those days give me a minute. There's something I need to pick. I'll be right back with you. Give
no
me
problem.
2 minutes.
Sharif Mustafa, stay cool. I will be back shortly as we wait for our friend.
Hata nimerudi.
Oh, wonderful.
I thought I forgot something somewhere. And I've realized now.
Inaungua.
Kuna kitu. I'm actually in the office,
so as I was saying, you see,
lazima atatupa kalai naseme Chantal about to throw a tantrum, so I had to cool her down.
Chantal alikuwa anabisha. So, but then again, between the investors and the government, who should advise who?
It has to be a collaborative effort. Sometimes you want a government that is visionary.
The investor is driven by profiteering. It is the investor who has the nose for profit potential. The government is there to collect taxes only.
No, but government can be a bit of visionary. So let's say it's almost like the way I've seen it here. To some degree, there's some benefit or rather some advantage, like the Kenya economy or Kenya context has, where there's been sort of these grassroots-led efforts by, they are not necessarily pushed by government or following a government policy, but they just envisioned an opportunity. It could be somebody like you and me and decide, let's take a bet on this. And before you know it, it pans out very well. But I think where government can come in is one, can say, okay, where do we see Kenya maybe in the next 50 years? Which are some of the areas we should capture? It could be, we were talking about the other day about how the MICE sector, MICE is around meeting and conferences, how we can take advantage of that. Because one, of our location, two, of our weather, three, we've got our tourism products to back that up. The government could say, we want to position Kenya to be the top MICE sector or destination in Africa. What does that take? There's the infrastructure of setting up convention centers. There's the infrastructure of laying out roads. And so where can the government come in? Where can the private sector come in? So once government says this is our goal for the next 10, 50 years going forward, and we want to partner with private sector on this, now private sector can say, yes, we can come in and put up the convention centers. We can come in and put up the hotels. We can come up and put up the resort centers, we can come up and put up whatever it is. So it's now, then the government begins to support it by way of tax rebates, all these kind of things. So once it sets out its vision on where it wants to see Kenya, then now all it requires, private sector just needs to write that. And government doesn't even need to put a single cent. Put a policy paper, put the requisite benefits to attract a favorable investor, and boom, this thing runs itself. So it could be mice, could be manufacturing, could be this and that, and then say these are the areas we want to get into, the electronics and appliances business. How do you do that? And then and on and on and on. So that's why I feel our governments, are not playing their part. I mean, that's why you find, if you look at real estate, you find a lot of private sector buy big tracts of land, and they'll put up their housing, but then there's no sewage system puts in. There's no roads to go to those nice estates. So the government seems to be ways too late, rather than going ahead of the curve, put up the roads, put up the sewage and the water system, and then private sector will put up everything else that is required. So it has to be collaborative and then a partnership kind of a thing. But the vision, government can help. Private sector can try to drive it, but more so if government sets out proper vision, then
that part of vision ndio inakuanga shida kidogo. Upon the vision, things get a bit hazy. But maybe it's due to my background. I tend to lean more towards manufacturing, and at the bigger picture is our reliance on the dollar. The only way you can beat the dollar is just manufacture. And not just manufacturing. Look at what we are importing. We are looking at Dandora dump site. That is an excellent LFG, they are called landfill gas. Is enough to take care of our our cooking gas requirements, and it's compared to a place like KPRL, Kenya Petroleum Refineries Limited. That's a very small project. In fact, I used to have one schematic I made back in 2013, I think. I shared with some people. That was before the counties came in. Before they shared some people in Mombasa County, and they said, okay, it landed somewhere. So, but since I was in Mombasa, I was focusing on Mwakirungi. Mombasa, the dump site is called Mwakirungi. So we are looking at so many. Now, in terms of government, I would love it when it comes to what we call transportation policies that encourage efficiency. For example, we have no control over fuel prices, but we can control our fuel use. So you can, like that truck on train kind of transportation. If your truck is moving more than 300 kilometers, we encourage you to put it on top of the SGR. Or maybe if SGR is too expensive, the meter gauge is there. In fact, meter gauge from Mombasa passes outside my house here. So now, somebody will argue maybe meter gauge is a bit slow, but obviously what you'll pay is slightly cheaper than fueling your vehicle. Number two, wear and tear on the vehicle is practically zero. Tires, springs, bushes, engine wear is zero kabisa. So if we have such policies, obviously the dollar will take a hit, because one, we are moving more cargo. It may be slow, but it's uninterrupted. And these are trucks. You don't expect a truck to move at 80 kilometers. Most trucks are tethered at 65. But if you put it on a locomotive, on a wagons that are doing 40 kilometers per hour, but uninterrupted, between 40 and 65. Remember, if you are maxing at 65, but there are places you'll slow down, bumps, nini, you have to stop at the way bridges, the driver has to stop and eat and whatnot. But this is a train. Probably there'll be a carriage in the front where the drivers can sit with a small kitchenette and the train can just do 40 kph uninterrupted from Mombasa to Nairobi. And putting things like where these components that are used to service the trucks, they are imported in dollars. The tires, the springs, the ball, these are imports. So when you have 40 trucks, in 1 month, 40 trucks, the consumption of ball bearings, consumption of tires, consumption of suspension components, springs, and whatnot, the dollar will take a hit. All these oil change, because these whatever they are done by mile after these kilometers, change oil, change these, change filters. But now the vehicle is stationary from Mombasa to Kisumu on top of a flatbed. You only need 3 months, and the financial year changes very drastically because those components you normally import to fit in these vehicles, the lifespan of the lifespan, what's called the operational lifespan of the vehicle, is higher, but the consumption of service components is low. In fact, that is a disruptor. It's a system disruptor. So these are things that I will back the government. These are now policies that are tailor-made to make to strengthen the country's currency. Then unity in what you call acquire of purchasing of common consumptions like petroleum products.
Mm.
And you
The bulk buying.
Yes, you don't even need many countries. You just start small, Kenya and Uganda. Because
let the rest come in, and once they find the benefit, they'll be able to jump on that.
And when two countries join in and they see a discount, someone will be knocking on the door. Hey, mi pia nataka niingie hii kitu bwana. Hii chama inakaa si mbaya. Other countries, then within a short time, we have a very huge block. Like an Eastern, not even East Africa, Eastern Africa block. Now imagine the amount of petrodollars the economy will benefit from in terms of savings. Then I thought of something that could be useful in the medical sector. How many millions of dollars are spent per year in purchasing malaria drugs? Now, if you introduce a project whereby we have 47 counties, each county, they do some major industrial scale spraying. I remember when I was small, there used to be people come, and they used to come at around 7 with a very huge, funny looking car. And that thing looks like a machine gun. And we'll be so happy to, we'll be clapping our hands, hey, tumepigiwa dawa. So,
man,
we used to be small.
We are the crazy ones because
you know, Sharif Mustafa those Land Cruisers, the Somali militia, they are called technicals. I don't know if Sharif Mustafa can back me up. So they'll be in that Land Cruiser like a technical. This guy will be seated there like a very huge rig with a tank. He'll be like, and be like, wazi, now we do over 47 counties. We do that. Then this, this institute that deals with insects, they introduce sterile mosquitoes because it is the female mosquito that spreads malaria. Introduce male sterile mosquitoes who will be firing blanks. Within no time, the mosquito population takes a hit.
Yeah.
Mosquito population takes a hit. Importation of malaria drugs takes another hit.
I mean, not even that. We can produce some of that medication. But yes, you don't want people to get sick fast so that they can get medication. But all these things, I mean, if you look at, we've got a few pharmaceutical firms in Kenya. I've worked with the likes of Dawa, and of course they get the license to do generics. If you've worked with any of these organizations, you realize after several years they'll declare a drug to be a generic. Yeah. So that's part of it. So it's one of those types of things that we have the capability, basically.
Yes.
And I don't know why these things, the more we discuss it, it gets annoying to learn how. It seems so basic,
You look
But
crazy.
yes, I think we are the crazy ones
This is the
because
wazimu.
why the issue of manufacture. Actually, I remember this week somebody I was in another meeting, and they had one of this sort of icebreaker type question, and somebody asked, "What would you do if you're the president of Kenya?" And I said, "I'll do three things: manufacturing, manufacturing, manufacturing. And one is to ensure we are more self-sufficient, and two is to lessen our demand on the dollar." It's a
Yeah.
no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. But we are not seeing any movement now. We don't expect these things to happen overnight. The current pain we are having with a shortage of the dollar, the increased exchange rate, we are going to continue to encounter this pain for a while, at least in the short run. But what are we doing now to ensure our next 3 to 5 years we are not going to encounter this same problem? I'm not seeing any move for the government to push. I mean, I was looking at that, at least during the last administration, it was the big four, and manufacturing was one of the big ticket items on it. Now we've got what they are calling the bottoms up driven economic transformation. That's the agenda of the government, this new administration. And
Where the
I
prices
don't
are
see,
the bottom to up.
yes, I don't see any move towards manufacturing. What I'm hearing more is around housing. What I'm hearing more is around increasing taxes. But the other day, they even saw, I mean, even though our taxes have increased, but what was it? There was a graph that was showing that either things have plateaued. Oh, no, it was the graph for petrol consumption. So what has happened is with the increased prices, what has happened now, people are driving less. So the consumption has actually gone low. So this is the thing. You expect that if you're going to think of it linearly, that the more I increase my price, the more I'll increase my revenue, then the consumer happens now to cut back or look for other cheaper options. Maybe use public transportation instead of using 2 cars per family. Now they have to figure out how they share 1 car. Instead of thinking of doing road trips, now they cut down on that, and people are sitting home more.
You, you
So
become
you as a
like
supplier, you're suffering.
watching
Even
movies.
with taxes, it's gonna be the same thing. Maybe now they're gonna increase because people are probably forced to pay for it, but there's an impact where it's gonna now negatively impact on businesses and consequently on the government because it will collect less or it will maintain a plateau. So
Bottom up for you.
tits
When
up.
so that's why when you said visionary, I said which government are you talking of? This one, unless
Uh,
they are cooking something that. But anyway, it's very hard to when you are in the kitchen, the smell coming out is bad, then the food becomes good. Good food smells good from the word go. Yes, it has a nice. There's no day you will hear a bad smell from the kitchen, then the food
yes.
comes out. Bad food, bad smell, everything is bad. Right now, the smell is watch out to gas mask karaka upesi. Anyway,
I think it would have been good if there's one point we could have an insider in government to come and tell us
yes, like
where is the holdup?
this guy called Alai. I don't know if you can, but Robert Alai here is
Yes, to tell us why are these things, they seem like a no-brainer,
hmm.
yet the government of the day suffers these same issues.
So basically, uh, again, I would really want to push the needle towards the investors, or I call it the investing mentality. Yes, of course, the government has a role, but it is you who has the capacity. You've been making money for ages. Don't you see opportunity? Because I don't know, as they say, those with resources don't have ideas, those with ideas don't have resources. And that line of intersection is in fact, we are going this way, soon to be moving further and further apart. So we are looking some of the opportunities, it is they are flying everywhere. When it comes to like vehicle manufacturing. There's another trick. Okay, don't know if I call it a trick or what not. There's another, I'll call it a trick that you'd use to stem down the flow of automotive imports. I was
Mm.
operating around Eastlands there. That place
Mhm.
is full of these vehicles. They are not exactly vehicles that are write-offs, but a
Mhm.
number of vehicles which are broken, they are no longer running. The body is
Mhm.
okay, but they are not running. So somebody got, you're supposed to pay for something you could not,
Yeah.
has been there for years. And I was
Mm.
asking about the pricing. They will tell you per unit they are going for 100,000 shillings.
Mm.
All right, 100,000 shillings.
Mm.
So
Mm.
if you can, this can be actually be a factory. You
Mm.
buy these units and refurbish them to full capacity, but as hybrids.
Mm.
That is a factory on its own.
Mm.
That is a factory on its own. Refurbishing this, because they tell you on average one is 100,000.
Mhm.
So if you are looking for, let's say, 100 units, you may get it at 80. Because so if I can
Mm.
share this thing, it's one of something I really, it's something I can, if I can be a bit, can be a bit vulgar. This is something I can actually wank to every night. It's called, it's called, what do I call it? What is this? What is this? Yep, here we are. I'm going to place it in your WhatsApp.
Okay.
That's a motor axle. I don't know if you can share it here. And
Mhm.
just check your WhatsApp and share it here. You've seen it?
It's loading. Just give it a minute.
This, I normally have beautiful dreams about this thing.
Mm.
I think it's yep, can just share it here.
Mhm. Okay. You seen it?
It's loading. Yeah, this is a motor axle.
Yes,
It's
it
an
is.
axle. Instead of having a differential, it's a motor.
Mm.
Then you can import an engine, or you can
Mhm.
refurbish that engine, then place an alternator so that engine becomes a genset. Then you wire
Mhm.
it to this motor. So you have what you call a series hybrid. In this
Mhm.
condition, you're talking of 35% drop in fuel consumption.
Yeah.
There's no gearbox maintenance. And then if you put up something like a supercapacitor, each time you slow down the vehicle, it recovers that energy. So 35% drop in fuel without energy recovery. This entire
So
factory,
it's a hybrid in and of itself, and we can convert most of our cars to this. So
all of
there's
them,
a
as
power,
long as
all of them.
when you are buying this axle,
Mm.
you have to tell the supplier
Mhm.
the specification of the vehicle you are buying. If it's a Subaru with 300 horsepower, what not, they will give you the motor rating for this. You just buy this unit. They'll tell you it's about conversions. So we'll import this, then you can refurbish the engine, import the alternator, wire it up, and also you get in a hybrid battery or a bank of supercapacitors. I prefer a supercapacitor because it's lighter and it charges and discharges very quickly. Because you're not just storing energy, you are buffering it. Each time you slow down, it buffers up, then you can deploy it and run your vehicle at. Now, this is an entire factory.
This is an entire factory, so we can build this.
You can build, no, this axle, you import it.
So you import. So we so the sort of the factory that we build is the conversions. So we
Yes, the
buy
converter,
this
you are
and
just
then convert
removing
it
the
to
rear axle
vehicles. Mhm.
and replacing it with this. And as time goes by, you can now build yours ground up. You see, business tends the nature of business is to expand, and you do this to avoid a lot of issues. There are so many thrown away vehicles all over, especially in Eastlands. So many. And this is an entire
And
factory. Bodyworks, Nini, upholstery, name it. I know of somebody called Osiepa and Stitch by Wash. Imagine if they get an order for 500 seats.
and the idea is to now, and the best is to target trucks, buses.
Any vehicle. In fact, I'll be more
But
happy with the personal cars
if
because
we were to sort of begin phasing out, and where we would get more return,
well, then if that is the
because
case, you have to work with okay, for trucks is a bit easy because most of these trucks are purchased second and ex UK, so
yes,
there are no warranties. But if for the Isuzu NQ, those are purchased from General Motor or Isuzu East Africa. Unless you are dealing with those vehicles which are old and thrown away or they are in very poor condition, so you are refurbishing them as hybrids. The issue here, one, you're providing employment. Two, you are stemming the flow of imports.
oil
Yeah,
particularly.
yeah. Imports of the vehicle, reducing the fuel consumption. It's one big
Yeah, the
chain.
ripple effect. Yeah,
Yes,
that ripple effect is big.
yeah. You run this for 1 year, even if you, in fact, if possible, if you have the resources, you can be having one line for commercial vehicles, another one for the small vehicles.
Exactly. And you know, we were talking about this, I think, in one of the Kibe spaces, must have been last week
Mm.
when we went in around innovation. And you know, somebody came in first on, you know, building the batteries. Somebody was talking about, you know, building charging stations. And it was a guy actually from America. But then we were looking at how is that applicable from an African perspective? And we saw, of course, yes, as much as we need to now probably build more charging station, Africa's sort of move towards e-mobility is going to be a different, it's going to take a different approach. One, I think where we saw a big back was, can we go into converting our motorcycles, which are predominantly used, particularly in the major cities, as a means of transportation? Let's ensure all those have gone green. And then if it is that, then for them, the idea is to ensure that they don't have to charge like you charge a normal car, where they have to factor in a 20-minute downtime. It will be more of battery swapping. So there will be a question of more battery swapping stations for the motors. Then the other one is now for the vehicles. Do we import just electric vehicles from China? Do we look at assembling electric vehicles from China? For me, it seems like the other step will be just what you're proposing, which will be, let's convert our existing vehicles to be hybrids,
Yeah.
and then begin to see what the impact of that will be. And we can see down the line it will reduce our
And
oil
then
consumption, our dollar rates, and all that.
and then what I found to be quite disappointing, you see, in other countries, I don't want to touch on, but in Africa, okay, specifically in Kenya, e-mobility has to be linked with sectors where transport is a necessary headache.
Yeah.
A school bus.
Mhm.
Schools, their core business is selling education services.
Mhm.
That bus is simply a tool of convenience and competitive edge.
Mhm.
And it runs in the morning and in the evening. So if I give you an electric unit whereby you're not paying for gearbox maintenance, you're not buying filters, you're not buying lubricant, I'm softening the blow for you. If you're dealing with the bakery, whereby these guys wish that bread or those loaves could fly by themselves to the customer, they will be hallelujah. Those ones could do because the bread vans, how far do they go? And these vehicles go on a predetermined route. You look at staff transport. A
Mhm.
manufacturer, his job is not transport, his job is
Mhm.
simply manufacturing. His staff bus is to ensure that his workers get to the point of work on time. Maybe the factory is located far from the normal commuter routes. So he's provided that transport. And now then he has to pay for gearbox and whatnot, this maintenance, which is not part of his core function. So if you give him a unit that reduces that expense by over 80%, that is okay. Then when you go to the long distance unit, because I'm okay with the schools and the stuff, but because the charging infrastructure can be integrated with the power supply in the premises.
Mm.
There's no mathematics around it. A bakery uses power, and there's most likely a generator there. So a charging unit can be plugged there very easily. There's no policy on just we need something for charging, put there. Same with the majority of schools in the urban areas. They have power, they have generators. Places like ambulances. A hospital is to sell medication. In fact, in a full day in a hospital, how often is the ambulance operated in one full day? It's debatable, but it's not something that is moving every half an hour, and they have to maintain. But an electrical unit with a range of 300 kilometers, which ambulance goes 200 kilometers in a day? It can't happen. So these are the aspects that can be applied to lessen that bottom line for these companies where transportation is a necessary headache. And then apart from that, there's no much disruption needed to put a charging center. Like now, a city as crowded as Nairobi, if you want to put multiple charging stations for private cars, where are you going to start now? Let's say Nairobi has 300 electric cars. Unaanza wapi sasa? Where are you going to place them? You will find Mlolongo a very huge queue of vehicles waiting to be charged. But for factories, each factory has its premise. The vehicle does what it does in a Rudikwa premise, it's plugged in. Now, for the long distance and private owners, the hybrids can come in because a hybrid will go as far as the fuel is available. So we are moving from 85% on the electric to 35% on the hybrids, which is okay. So far, I've not seen how there's been an integration between e-mobility and manufacturing, medical field, education. Hakuna. And this is where it should be. I've only seen them on matatus. And the headache with the matatu is not really fuel. Matatu is simply crew conduct is the big deal. To a point where some people are forced to buy cars to avoid that menace. Yeah, yeah, majority of course, the fuel increase is a big headache. But another headache which has existed even when the fuel cost is low is the crude behavior of these touts. I'm sure a very nice diesel-powered bus that looks nice, looks presentable, and runs on time. Some people will park their vehicles. The train runs on diesel. In Athi River, people park their cars and ride on it. It's not fully electric. Why do people?
Partly it's our disorganization and
Yeah,
the lack of order in that sector. So it's a crazy situation. But yeah, man, definitely. I like that roadmap that we've just hashed out here. And I think because you're an expert, you've thought through all those elements. And the impacts are clear. I mean, the benefits are clear for all of us to see. Man,
because
I hope somebody is listening. I
Sorry?
think maybe this could be one of your projects. You should figure out how you can create a prototype for this to show as an example.
Let me
After you
just
finish your zero bike project, maybe one will be we convert a rail vehicle and it can be just a simple sedan. So a saloon car, we change it and look at the benefits. Look at what was its consumption before and what the consumption will be after.
Yes.
How that changeover process has been, what it has taken, what it cost, and all that.
Yeah, it's all about just putting the grind and just trying. So let me just deal with that name Zero Bike. soon it will be gone. The next time we'll be having the second iteration. It will be a very different name altogether. Very different name. It will look different, sound different. There'll be some changes in the team, but it's all part of we call the product life cycle. I'm
It
sure
is. It
I looked
is.
and sounded different 10 years ago. So it's all good. It's all good. So, oh, 1 hour, 5 minutes. Man, this is crazy. And we didn't rehearse anything. Fantastic.
This
Fantastic.
thing works so well, eh? I was just telling a friend how we're able to have an hour long plus convo without having rehearsed or pre-planned anything of this, and actually we are literally having to stop ourselves.
Yes, you have
We
to do
could go
some.
on if we had to, but every good thing has an end, and of
Yeah,
course
yeah.
we can't give everything all today. So let's change the other one for whatever that other topic will be for the next weekend.
As we normally say before we start, we normally say we shall know in front.
We shall know in front.
Julia
Tutajulia
Mbele.
mbele.
Hmm. So, gratitude to our Lone Wolf audience, Mr. Sharif Mustafa. Thank you very much.
Yes, yes.
And my able co host, Mr. Andrew Mutua. You remember I used to say, mazee, life is complex, bwana. Hii tutaweza kweli? Episode number 38.
Where are we
So,
now?
adios.
Cool beans, bro. Adios. See ya.